Hello, I'm Amanda Wheeler, and welcome to Antarctica. This continent may look like a winter wonderland frozen in place, but during the past few decades, more and more of the ice shelf has collapsed and glacier melt has occurred, reducing the size of this icy desert. The melting of the Larsen Ice Shelf in the Antarctic Peninsula not only has local impacts of negative ice loss for the continent, but the addition of meltwater also has implications across the globe. To start off, I'll discuss some background information about the ice shelf before explaining the worldwide negative consequences of glacial melt and its accelerated impact of climate change. Let's get started. The Larsen Ice Shelf is located in the Weddell Sea, along the eastern coast of the Antarctic Peninsula. It's named after the Norwegian Captain Carl Larsen, who sailed across the ice front in 1893. The ice shelf is divided up into multiple sections, which have been breaking off since the 1990s. Such segments include Larsen A, Larsen B, Larsen C, and Larsen D, which are in sequence along the coast moving southward. The coastline of the Larsen Ice Shelf has been retreating since the 1990s. In orange, you can see where the extent was initially in 1986. There was a significant ice loss in the 2000s after the collapse of Larsen A in 1995 and Larsen B in 2002, which you can see outlined in pink. Further retreat of the ice sheet can be seen with the purple outline representing the location of the coast in 2016. The Larsen C iceberg just collapsed recently on July 12, 2017, and it was one of the largest icebergs ever recorded. It was roughly the size of Delaware, or you could say the Greater Toronto Area. The detachment of this massive iceberg could result in the acceleration of future ice loss. The collapse of the ice shelf can be seen in this animation, with a 200-kilometer-long crack that begins to penetrate through the ice at the beginning of the year. You can see that it completely detaches in July and begins to migrate away from the coast. A warming climate has been directly related to the melting collapse of ice masses worldwide. As air temperatures over the Antarctic Peninsula warmed in the later half of the 20th century, the Larsen Ice Shelf began to shrink dramatically. In winter, snowfall events are generally sufficient enough to balance out the melting, but recently, continual higher temperatures caused by global warming have led to increased summer melting as well as diminished snowfall, with later winters and earlier springs. In the past 30 years, ice mass in the Antarctic has decreased by over 13,000 kilometers squared, at least in part due to the rise in mean air temperatures of 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. The addition of melt from the Larsen Ice Shelf pieces themselves may not cause a significant ice mass loss from the Antarctic or sea level change, as they're already floating in the ocean, but their collapse leads to the rapid descent of feeder glaciers. After Larsen A and Larsen B collapsed, feeder glaciers on land thinned and began to lose ice at a faster rate than before. The presence of a grounded ice shelf can create a backward pressure, blocking the downward flow of inland ice masses. Now, when the grounded glacier breaks away, the pressure on the inland glaciers or feeder glaciers is removed, and they are able to begin a rapid descent into the ocean. In the Antarctic Peninsula, ice shelf thinning or collapse can increase inland glacier flow rates by up to 8 times. Air temperature increases in the 1990s led to longer melt periods and an increase in melt ponds, which occur on the top of northern ice shelves. And warmer ocean temperatures in the Weddell Sea also led to an increasing extent of basal melting at the bottom of the Larsen Ice Shelf segments. Summer meltwater can also reach the bed of the glaciers through crevasses. Now, this added lubrication allows the feeder glaciers to move more easily as they begin their descent into the water after a grounded glacier is released. The change in ice thickness of the Antarctic ice sheet from 1992 to 2012 is shown in this animation. The red color represents a negative ice mass change of up to 10 meters. Over the 10-year time period, there is an increase in the area in red, indicating an increase in the ice lost over the years. Corresponding to the same time period, you can see that there is a continual increase in sea level of just under 5 millimeters with the addition of the Antarctic ice melt. Consequences of sea level rise, as increased by glacial melt and accelerated global warming, can cause negative environmental impacts such as flooding, erosion, and coastal habitat destruction. As seawater moves further inland, it can result in erosion and flooding, leading to destruction of habitat for plants, animals, and the humans that reside on the coast of the area impacted. When large storms reach the coast, higher sea levels mean higher, more powerful storm surges that can strip away everything in their path. The addition of seawater can also cause agricultural contamination, as many plants do not grow well with the salt residues left behind from the evaporating ocean water. Groundwater contamination can also occur from the penetration of saltwater if it reaches aquifers used for drinking water, and they will become unviable for future use. Sea level rise from climate change and land subsidence is expected to greatly impact the duration and damage caused by flooding events in tidal communities. These communities must continuously invest in the maintenance of existing structures and installation of new flood prevention structures. Tide gates are a common prevention structure for low-lying communities in the tidal zone. The gates close during high tides to prevent water from overflowing inland, and they are kept open during outgoing low tides, allowing drainage. Venice, Italy is an example of such a community. The city is under serious threat due to the rise in sea level and sinking of land at an alarming rate. The Moses Project, consisting of 78 barriers, will protect the Venetian lagoon from being submerged by the Adriatic Sea. The barriers are lifted to raise up the lagoon banks to prevent this flooding during high tide. Another example is the Thames River. Occasionally it experiences surges during high tidal events, resulting in flooding in London, England. The Thames Barrier is one of the largest movable flood barriers in the world, and extends across the river, closing when necessary. The Netherlands is a very low-lying country, with 50% of its land only 1 meter above sea level in elevation, and is thus prone to flooding from higher sea level events. The Oosterscheldekring Barrier is an 8-kilometer-long dam built to protect the Zeeland region. A little closer to home, in New Orleans, USA, after the destruction caused by Hurricane Katrina, the Inner Harbor Navigation Canal Lake Borgny-Surge Barrier was built. It was the largest civil engineering project in the history of the United States Corps of Engineers. Being 26 feet high and 10,000 feet long, this barrier will close its navigation gates in anticipation of a storm surge and minimize the risk of the 100-year floods. These barrier structures, among others, which are commonly built for tidal surges, could also work for sea level rise caused by global warming and glacial melt. The collapse and subsequent melting of the Larsen Ice Shelf has implications across the globe with its contribution to sea level rise, with the collapse of the ice shelf segments followed by the movement and melt of the feeder glaciers. And a variety of negative consequences follows this rise in water level, including flooding, erosion, habitat destruction, and soil and groundwater contamination worldwide, with low-lying coastal areas being the most affected by this. Some mechanisms have been put into place to prevent damage from rising water levels, such as Project Moses in Venice, Italy, and the Thames Barrier in London, England, and these will hold back waters under current conditions. But by 2100, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change predicts that the ocean levels could rise between 30 and 100 centimeters. But with a complete meltdown of the Greenland ice sheet in the north, this could reach 23 feet. And the ability of these barriers to hold back floodwaters under these extreme conditions is more uncertain. If stronger mechanisms can't be put into place, low-lying areas such as Venice could be as lost as the city of Atlantis.